Hello, streamers, dreamers, ice creamers. What's up, guys? Hope you all are having a wonderful Wednesday evening. We are back with another episode of the Tony Restores live stream, the Go Green live stream. I don't know, what are we on, episode 13 now? Something like that. I just like coming to hang out every Wednesday night and talk about ways we can solve problems, create solutions, you know what I mean? Let's stop the eco-catastrophe, y'all. Let's quit it. Let's cut it out. Let's stop the eco-catastrophe. Alright, so. Fuzziness. Don't like the fuzziness. I thought my USB hub was going to solve this. This is just, it's a gain problem here. Some sort of gain problem. If I turn this down a bit, turn it down, Tad. So, welcome, guys. Tonight's going to be another happy-go-lucky episode. I don't want to pull up any of the bad stuff. There's quite a bit of that going around. So instead of doing all the natural disaster stuff and all the climate catastrophe articles that you can pull up about how corporations, and not just corporations, but governments and even individuals are completely ruining the environment. Let's stop. Let's collectively stop doing that, huh? Okay, moving on. So first thing on tonight's agenda, basically, tonight we're just going to talk about cannabis and psilocybin/mushroom mycelial solutions. So these two things alone, guys, I think can revolutionize ecology, and it can really revolutionize society as well. If we would fully embrace them and dive into their mysteries. So yeah, mainly, and we won't even get into the drug aspects of it. Today I want to kind of talk about the industrial applications for cannabis and hemp. So every year that goes by, I try to keep up on the industrial side of cannabis legalization. You know, in 2018 they had the Farm Bill passed, which allowed the cultivation of hemp and made it legal again, which is purely just, mainly for the stalks, grown for the fibrous materials. So there's all kinds of hempcrete and hemp woods out there that we can use to grow. Well, the biggest thing about this too is when you mass grow agriculturally, when you mass grow hemp, it is more of a CO2 grabber than a forest is. Hemp is one of the biggest CO2 eaters of all because it grows so quickly. So I think it pulls out like from 8 to 15 tons per hectare, whereas forests are like 2 to 6 or something like that. So it's just insane the amount of carbon and CO2 reduction it can help us with, managing that big carbon CO2 problem. But even more so than that, I mean, these solutions as far as insulation goes and stuff like that, and replacing plastics and concrete and all kinds of stressful industrial material making, we can grow hempcrete. So here's a little bit. Belinda Carr, go subscribe to her channel. She's got some sweet stuff here, but she's got a cool little video breakdown here of what hempcrete and hempwood is.
Full-length fiber hemp stalks arrive from farmers in bales or rolls. The bales are separated and crushed to make them more flexible. Next, they are spread evenly on a mesh. The roll of hemp stalks is submerged in a proprietary, all-natural, soy-based adhesive. After saturation, the hemp stalks are spread on racks and placed in a dryer to lower the moisture content. After drying, the stalks are weighed into portions and compressed under 3,000 tons of pressure into 5.5 by 5.5 by 72-inch steel molds. These blocks are baked in an oven until the catalyst in the glue is activated, which makes the blocks solid. Now that's a good use of a shipping container. Hempwood can be turned into lumber, wood-turning blanks, 4x8 panels, picture frames, guitars, and furniture like lamps, tables, and cabinets. One of the most popular hempwood products is tongue and groove flooring. The blocks are sliced down into 1/8-inch thick hemp veneer and then pressed onto 1/2-inch plywood. The result is a very stable 5/8-inch thick engineered tongue and groove flooring in 3 options: unfinished, natural, and bourbon. Hempwood can either be rift sawn, which has a vertical linear pattern that resembles traditional lumber, or plain sawn, which has a more sporadic pattern. Because plain sawn is across the grain, it is harder than rift sawn hempwood. Hempwood flooring must be treated like high-quality, solid hardwood floors. Vapor barriers are essential because it is susceptible to moisture. This flooring can be installed on plywood or OSB subfloors with a standard nail gun. You can also install it as a floating floor as long as you use waterproof wood glue on all 4 sides. Gluing them down to a concrete slab is trickier for 3 reasons. First, the lack of a vapor barrier. About this product, it is an excellent alternative to hardwood because it grows faster, it is denser and harder. Oak trees take 50 to 100 years to mature, while hemp is transformed from seed to lumber in just 150 days, 100 times faster.
I mean, that's fast, guys. That's fast. That's 100 times faster. And again, this is going to absorb about 10 times as much CO2 as a forest. Well, I'm not really sure about oaks. Maybe they do absorb a ton of CO2, but typically hemp is just going to outperform any other ecosystem or any other plant as far as pulling carbon out of the air. So, I mean, here, this to me, it's a no-brainer, guys.
Oak also has a density of 40 to 50 pounds per cubic foot, while hempwood has a density of 60 pounds per cubic foot. Janka hardness test measures the resistance of a sample of wood to denting and wear. Oak has a Janka hardness of 1,300 pounds force, while hempwood has a Janka hardness of 2,000 pounds force, almost as hard as Brazilian cherry wood. It is 25% harder than hickory, oak, or maple. Hempwood is a very versatile and durable material that can easily replace furniture-grade lumber. It doesn't scratch easily and it can be sanded and refinished. Hemp is considered to be an eco-friendly material because it sequesters more carbon than trees do. A hemp plot absorbs 4 times more carbon than a forest of the same size.
4 times.
By the time it is harvested, a hectare of hemp will have taken in about 22 tons of carbon.
Yeah, and it doesn't burn. That's super interesting.
Hemp stalks are naturally flammable. However, hempwood flooring is so densely compressed, it has a low Class B fire rating. When exposed to a flame for a long period of time, it did char and blacken, but the flame did not spread and it did not catch fire. It has no additives to make it more fire resistant than a hemp stalk. Most importantly, it is free of formaldehyde. I spoke to Greg Wilson, founder of Hempwood, who used his knowledge from the bamboo and flooring industry to create this sustainable hardwood alternative. Greg said that the flooring industry has conveniently stopped using formaldehyde in their marketing and switched to phenolic resin, even though they are the same thing. Cheap, waterproof vinyl products are made from a...
Yeah, guys, if you want to really be conscientious, earth conscious, make sure you dig into the terminology that these companies use. They often will change the vocabulary, change the definitions of the harmful and toxic chemicals they're using in their products. So, just do your due diligence. Do your due diligence on the products that you're buying and try to be as eco-conscious as you can. I mean, one way, if you can support the hemp business in any way, shape, or form, definitely do so. Because this hempcrete and this hempwood stuff is super exciting.
Variety of chemicals that off-gas. They emit VOCs or volatile organic compounds that can cause headaches, nausea, nose and throat irritation, etc. In large quantities, they can damage our liver, kidneys, or central nervous system. Of course, using healthy materials comes at a cost, which is why large flooring manufacturers choose cheap alternatives. Hempwood uses pure bond plywood for their flooring, which is 20% more expensive than imported plywood. They also use a soy-based adhesive that costs $2.60 per pound, compared to a phenolic formaldehyde that costs 17 cents per pound. Their unfinished flooring costs $8
That's
per
one of the
square
big
foot,
negatives is the
while
cost.
their finished versions are $10 per square foot. A 4x8 sheet of hempwood is $240. Hey guys, just a quick interruption.
So yeah, guys, I mean, super cool, super interesting. Same thing here. She's got also something similar when it comes to fungus. Can mycelium also replace
It led to the creation of
our,
synthetic
our
polymers,
current
which are compounds made up of repeating
industrial
units or monomers. Plastics
wood
have
and
transformed everyday
plastic
life
industry?
and are one of the biggest chemical success stories of the 20th century. But their versatility has consequences. Annual production of plastics has now crossed over 300 million tons, of which less than 10% is recycled. In under a century, we have created a destructive economy of single-use plastics that is choking the planet. One promising solution to plastic pollution is mycelium or mushroom packaging. It is made up of two ingredients, mushrooms and hemp. Mycelium is the root of mushrooms. It is the underground network of very durable, thread-like filaments called hyphae. It acts like a biological binder or glue that holds the product together. It is mixed with agricultural waste like wood chips, oat hulls, cotton burrs, or hemp hurds. One of the largest mushroom packaging manufacturers in the world is Ecovative Design, a New York-based biotech company founded in 2006. They sent me these samples of their product. Their manufacturing process is pretty straightforward. Their designers create a 3D CAD model of custom packaging. A CNC machine routes the design into MDF. Plastic trays are thermoformed around the MDF pieces. They use PETG or polyethylene terephthalate glycol, which can be reused and recycled. Yes, it's ironic to use plastic trays, but this proves how difficult it is to eliminate plastic from our lives. The tray is filled with their proprietary hemp hurd and mycelium blend. It is allowed to grow for 4 days in a controlled environment with regulated temperatures, airflow, carbon dioxide, and humidity levels. Mycelium strands quickly fill the empty spaces in the mold. In just 7 days, the form is complete. It is popped out of the tray and allowed to continue growing for 2 more days to create a velvety layer of overgrowth. The packaging is then heat treated to dry out, kill spores, and stop the growth process. Ecovative Design has produced 5 million pounds of mushroom packaging in the past few years. They have licensed their formula to companies in Europe, Australia, and New Zealand. Companies like IKEA, Dell, and Seedlip have committed to using mushroom packaging. This material can last for up to 30 years in dry, temperature-controlled environments. It is also 100% biodegradable and a nutrient for soil and plants. When broken down into 1 cubic centimeter pieces, it will compost in just 45 days. In the ocean, it will break down in 180 days. Architects and engineers around the world have been experimenting with mushroom bricks. In 2014, a 40-foot or 12-meter high tower was built in New York by Ecovative, Arup, and The Living. 10,000 bricks were made from mycelium and corn stalks. They were stacked to form 3 interwoven chimneys. A wood scaffold on the inside provided additional support. The structure could resist wind gusts up to 65 miles per hour. This temporary installation was taken down in 3 months and the mushroom bricks were composted. In 2019, a drum-shaped temporary pavilion was set up in the Netherlands. It was composed of a timber frame, actively growing mushroom wall panels, and seating made of agricultural waste. Another potentially good use of mushroom bricks is for world expos and Olympic pavilions. Countries spend billions hosting these events and go into debt that some never recover from. Many Olympic villages turn into abandoned ghost towns in just a few years. Using cheap
Yeah, can you believe that? We build these massive structures in our society for these stadiums and for these games, and then we just leave them abandoned. Just meanwhile, there's just massive homelessness problem globally.
Biodegradable materials
Fascinating to me.
can be a sustainable and visually attractive alternative. Biome, a UK-based startup, has developed a mycelium insulation panel. It outperforms traditional insulation like Rockwool and fiberglass in terms of thermal capacity, fire resistance, and acoustic performance. I'm concerned about the lifespan of this product. 20 years down the line, are you expected to rip out all your drywall and install new insulation? That would be a waste of time and money. In addition to packaging materials, Ecovative is also experimenting with mycelium leather that is grown in 9 days, insulating foam for jackets, backpack straps, and footwear, bacon, and other plant-based meat. coffins, and urns. They even sell grow-it-yourself material for just $13 and forms to make planters, bricks, and tiles. Now let's discuss the advantages, disadvantages, and myths surrounding this new technology. Mushroom packaging and other mycelium-based products are non-toxic and free of VOCs and formaldehydes. They consume a tenth of the energy of foam and emit an eighth of the amount of greenhouse gases. They are cradle-to-cradle gold certified. It is an excellent example of a sustainable, circular economy product. It is also quite spongy, so it can protect fragile materials, just as well as petroleum-based foam. Ecovative claims that it is a cost, time, and performance competitive solution to plastic packaging. Mushroom packaging is naturally hydrophobic or water resistant. Water droplets roll right off and do not soak through. However, prolonged exposure to moisture and high humidity will lead to mold. Due to the inherent properties of mycelium, this material is a Class A fire retardant and has a very low flame spread of 20. Now the disadvantages. It is not very strong. It has a compressive strength of just 18 psi, so it can't be used as a structural material. It also has a short lifespan of 20 to 30 years. It can't be used as food storage containers, so it won't replace styrofoam right now. Since it is such a new technology, the few companies that produce these have patented the production process, which is a barrier to entry. The super low cost of plastic production is unfortunately a huge deterrent to the future of this technology. Plastic also offers many advantages like long-term water resistance and a longer lifespan. Molded pulp packaging, which has been around for 100 years, is another sustainable competitor to mycelium packaging, but it is heavier, which can raise shipping costs. Just with 3D printing, we're being fed some pretty outrageous claims. Your next house could be made of mushrooms. Mushrooms can save the world. Build space homes out of mushrooms. Why future homes could be made out of living fungus. Building with living mycelium is a huge challenge. The substrate material like straw or hemp stalks will decompose and reduce the structural integrity of the material. A Cleveland architecture firm, Red House Architecture, is working on a biocycling process. They want to demolish derelict homes, combine the waste with mycelium, and create new building materials. They believe it can be used for disaster relief housing and can also fix a housing shortage. Let's be realistic. Separating individual parts of a house like drywall, insulation, wood studs, concrete, plastic pipes, etc. is extremely time and energy intensive. We can't just pulverize old homes and turn them into new ones. The plastic industry has been complacent for too long and has avoided setting up an extensive recycling network. I hope competition like this will force them to be more responsible. Leave me a comment below with your thoughts on mushroom packaging.
Isn't she a smarty, huh? So yeah, guys, pretty cool. I mean, just think of all the applications that this stuff can do. I mean, and some of these hemp advocates are getting super creative. I mean, the hempcrete, the mycelium. Yeah, it's shocking to me that we have this cheap. Well, it's not cheap. Plastic is cheaper, and that's what she said. You can just tell in almost all these articles and for almost all these companies, sadly, it's just those barriers to entry, like she talked about, are just too large because plastic is so cheap, and these are very niche things right now. But if we can make them go mainstream, I mean, the applications are really endless. You know, specifically when it comes to like homelessness and stuff. If we get a couple of big companies behind something like this, you can almost solve homelessness. I mean, it's talked about pretty often. And I forget the dollar amount for, you know, what is it, $20 billion or something? You could solve homelessness. So I don't really know much more about the numbers behind it, but these hemp structures would be great. To house the homeless, and you know what, you could actually have the convicts who are locked up, who are, you know, I don't like convicts as a word, but people who are incarcerated and locked up for crimes, you could have them be the ones that build it, and then eventually, you know, once they're rehabilitated, they can build their own homes or their own little condo complexes that are made out of these things. And I just think the applications are super exciting. You know, you can really design quite the society using these materials, and they're all, you know, carbon neutral or carbon negative. So Yeah, I mean, not just that. The medicinal properties of cannabis and psilocybin can really help out, everybody. So super, yeah, net zero CO2. That's the goal of everything today, and people are getting really, really creative. I mean, look at this space. That looks so cool, modern looking. The colors are kind of dull, but that's not terrible. You can. That doesn't really. Obviously, you can. They're gonna put some sort of drywalling on here, but maybe not. Super interesting. Super interesting stuff, guys. When it comes to this, so. Yeah, and then using psilocybin as treatment for depression. I mean, this is Johns Hopkins Medicine here. They've been doing these studies for a long time. They're probably the most well-known name in the psychedelic psilocybin research game. So yeah, I mean, right here, guys, this is huge. This is just huge. Our findings add evidence that under carefully controlled conditions, this is a promising therapeutic approach that can lead to significant and durable improvements in depression. Says Natalie Guyeskana, an assistant professor of psychiatry and behavioral sciences at the Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine. She cautions, however, that the results we see in the research setting are quite a lot of preparation and structured support from trained clinicians and therapists. People should not attempt to try this on their own. Yeah, tons of research done over the past 20 years, guys. This study did quite a bit of different. The age participants was 40, 19 women, 25% is white, 1 African American, 1 Asian. 80% of the participants had previously been treated with standard antidepressant medications, and 50%. Yeah, so as a replacement for SSRIs, which just lead to so many other issues. Yeah, guys, it's super exciting stuff. I mean, I think when you apply the industrial and the medicinal and the agricultural implications for just cannabis and mycelium alone, if we were to fully embrace it as a society, as a country, and as a global society, we could change the world in a matter of a couple of years. Like I said, and you can even start on a small scale like it is now. Right now, it's too much of a there's not enough money, there's not enough profit motive in it because of capitalism, which leads me to my next big gripe about capitalist society. And I don't think capitalism is necessarily negative. There certainly hasn't really been any other alternative that's been as good in the past couple hundred years, but now we're seeing the past 50, 60 years the effects of what capitalism has done, and it has destroyed the planet. So we do need a new system. And that doesn't mean communism either, but we do need to create some sort of collective / individualistic. You could still have capitalism, but we need to pull the material and the profit motive incentive out of it. You need to have like a capitalism of ideas, a capitalism of memes, where instead of a monetary reward, you get a QOL quality of life reward, or they name roads after you, or museums, that kind of stuff. If your contribution, your idea won out and beat out all the other ideas, and instead of a monetary gain, you gain some sort of societal bonus, which is good for your legacy and for your for everybody. I don't know. I'm definitely not an economist, but we have to acknowledge that capitalism is one of the biggest reasons why we're in the situation we're in, with the planet and the dying ecosystems that we are currently dealing with, and ourselves. I mean, we're very unhealthy. We're depressed. We're a sick culture. And capitalism is the reason for that. Despite its many good things that it's done, I would say the bad outweighs the good in this current moment. And we need to evolve and progress out of the current system of capitalism that is dominating us. And not only that, capitalism promotes growth of monopolies, which is the real reason why we have these restrictions on cannabis and these restrictions on psychedelic psilocybin mushrooms. These are problems that the war on drugs and all these other things that they keep coming back up. And if we would just finally embrace these things, we're going to improve as a whole. So, yeah, I mean, the homelessness thing alone, and as well as the incarcerated people, yeah, I think it can help out with them so much treating their mental illness. Again, I'm not a doctor, and yeah, take these people's advice. You shouldn't be exploring this stuff on your own unless you've done a ton of research, talked to a clinician, talked to a therapist, read a couple of books, get ready for what you're doing before you go on your first trip. And the more you know, and the more knowledge you have going into it, the better off you're going to be. When it comes to cannabis, get out there and smoke it. Get out there, grow it yourself, and smoke it. That's the healing of the nations, and the applications for that medicinally are already evident. So that being said, it can also help with vets and police. We have a policing issue here, so I truly believe that not just the mental illness that plagues some of these veterans, but the police have a difficult job, and right now they have a monopoly on violence. And I think that that needs to change big time. And if we were to federally legalize and study some of these, fringe drugs like psilocybin and THC and cannabis and all this kind of stuff, it could help out these veterans and these police officers so much. I mean, we need to create what I like to call empath warriors. I've now dubbed the term empath warrior. I'm sure it's been talked about before. Somebody else has said it, but we've bred a culture of greed and individualistic domination, whereas we need to start functioning as a whole with each other in mind. A real warrior is so much more than a patriotic, athletic, and physical, well-trained, and strategic military-minded guy. Or human being, I'm sorry. So, in so many situations, you're willing to commit horrible acts and justify them in the name of your country or your creed, under the protection of a flag or a badge. And, that is what it is. We won't go more and deeper into that, but we need to have well-balanced warriors in society in roles like that are so important. A real warrior is kind of similar to, Japanese and their samurais and many other different cultures in history. If we look at history, warriors were not just only skilled physically, or skilled with the sword or skill in military tactics, but they spoke 5 languages. They grew gardens and had a vast knowledge of botany and stuff like that. They tended to their communities. They became teachers themselves. They constantly were seeking out knowledge and pursuing honorable quests and ideas, seeking truth and seeking Zen and flow state. It's just not always about war. That's a true warrior. And to me, that's kind of the definition of like an empath warrior. And that's what our current military and our current police departments need to be doing. We need to be training these guys to be more empath warriors. And I think they have a very tough job. And because of the way the system's set up, they are more prone to being fascists and monopolize violence and exploit and corrupt, and these people do unspeakable things like we've talked about in previous podcasts. And I'm not necessarily saying all of them, but the system that we've created makes it easy for these men and women who serve in the military, the armed forces, or in police departments or whatever that is, because they have a monopoly on violence to do bad things. And the corporate overlords that dictate the terms in pursuit of material wealth and greed pit countries and nationalities against each other. So I think that cannabis and mushroom use, if we start implementing them in society as a whole, especially in these type of fields or in these type of sectors of society, that need them the most, we can start the healing process. Which is kind of what we're doing. I mean, cannabis has come a long way. Arigato. Thank you very much to all the previous empath warriors and soldiers out there who have been fighting for the right to party, if you know what I mean, getting after the government and corporations that have been slowing up legalization for quite a long time. So, I mean, this kind of stuff, when I see big time universities with big federal grant money that can really do decent studies, start to open up their doors to this kind of stuff, I get really excited. The future is definitely something to look forward to. It's not something we should fear. So yeah, I mean, I want all of us, each of you, let's get excited about this kind of stuff and get passionate about it. I know I am. Let's all be our little version of empath warriors. So, Sun Tzu's one of his, famous quote, Rule 1, or one of the first couple chapters of his book in The Art of War is one of the first rules of war is to avoid war. Obviously, if you can solve any conflict, with diplomatic means without having to use violence, that always has to be pursued, no matter what, to the fullest extent. I mean, that's just logical, right? No other way to say it. So, yeah, I mean, we just need to rebuild our definition of warrior is all, and use psilocybin and cannabis to help us do that. So here's another one from Cambridge. Oh, we forgot our lo-fi, huh? This one just talks about the link between mental illness and biodiversity loss. People in urban environments and cities tend to have more mental health issues, anxiety, et cetera, so on and so forth. Whereas, in other countries or in other environments, or people who live in, in nature, basically, a more natural environment, tend to be happier. So, yeah, the way people would perceive natural depends on cultural factors, cultural belief, religious freedoms, personal factors, rural or urban areas, previous experiences, the type of community considered, the type of contact, the preconceived idea that people have about the concept of intact nature. For example, the Western society's urbanization often prevents people from open and permanent contact with natural environments. So the contact with an urban park is identified as a nature experience. However, this type of contact has little to do with the concept of biodiversity, suggesting that it may be perceived as biodiversity rather than actual biodiversity of places that gives rise to a person's experience of nature. Regarding the relationship between biodiversity and well-being, these effects of exposure to green areas with greater plant diversity have been grouped in A, harm reduction, such as reducing stress, B, restoring building capacities, including improving cognition and function, such as memory and attention, increasing positive social interaction, social cohesion, improving mood, self-esteem, relaxation, subjective well-being, increasing academic performance, imagination, and creativity of children. So, I mean, that's my argument right there, guys. I'm not anti-technology, anti-novelty, anti-anything, really. I'm just an advocate for being progressive, and I think that the more we understand our planet and how we interact with it, the better off we're going to be. Again, Western society, when we go to our parks, we think of that as a biodiverse place where we're out in nature, when really it's kind of not depending on the park, it's a completely manipulated and created and fabricated version of someone's perception of nature. So the only thing I'll say about this, guys, is as much as you can, I can't tell you how much I enjoy doing it. Get out there and experience nature. Whether it's cleaning up one of these parks that really isn't very natural nature at all, even that can be just so refreshing and so much fun. So definitely get out there in nature, guys, and check that kind of stuff out. Experiment, explore. So we'll end, as we usually do, guys, with a little bit of our Terence McKenna lecture here. So real quickly, I just want to go over one of these couple of paragraphs that I found in one of his talks called The Gnostic Astronaut. It relates to how I think psilocybin can help us as a community and individually, as in our mental health and in our experience. So, telepathy, I was conceived of as looking into your own mind and hearing what someone else was thinking. But the notion that telepathy might be someone speaking and producing a three-dimensional object in the air, could be rotated and mutually beheld by the speaker and the listener, had never occurred to me. But the experiment with DMT showed me that this extraordinary kind of state is actually potentially triggerable again and again. And it's almost as though there is a sensorium of the world, which in order to be reconstructed in the interior horizon of transcendence, that is the being of a given individual. The sensorium has to be arbitrarily broken down into its perceptual components of sound, sight, odor, tactility, etc. And normally as it enters a human organism, these categories, which are arbitrary but as old as the human body itself, are maintained. But they need not necessarily be maintained. The incoming sensory data can be recombined in such a way that no trace of the portal of entry is left upon it. And in that case, you get this freely evolving topology of light and sound that is translinguistic. It has a grammar of form, if you will. So that is not a shorn of meaning. It's a simple shorn of, particularized meaning that logical necessity imposes on language. Instead, it has emotional richness, a kind of poetic depth that is not like ordinary language at all. In fact, it causes one to think of the discussions of the primary poetic languages, such as the one that goes into The White Goddess by Robert Graves, where he wants to suggest that there is a proto-language, an Ursprach, that transcends conventionalized dictionaries, and a language which to hear is to understand it. And I think this kind of organization of information lies at the basis of the psychedelic experience. In other words, you can think of cultural conventions in human language as software languages that are historical adumbrations of an assembly language, which is prehistoric and probably in the genes of antedates, and the notion of human conventionalizing of activity is actually biologically the basis of language. So yeah, guys, I just wanted to point at this paragraph here because I truly think this is so important. One of the coolest things about the psychedelic experience is that it just gives you this overwhelming feeling of connectedness, not just to other human beings, but to everything. And it almost gives you a form of telepathy. It's hard to explain until you found the right dose. Terrence talks about the different doses and stuff like that, but you need to do a high enough dose where you actually have a psychedelic experience. You can do it at a low dose too. You can kind of feel this, but there's a certain energy that you can tap into where you really just get overwhelming feelings of euphoria and connectedness and empathy for everything, including inanimate objects like a rock, something that it doesn't even necessarily have to be a living thing. But that being said, get out there, guys, and check out dive into Terrence's work on this this telepathy language, or language that can be it's a three-dimensional object in the air. It's language that's seen and not spoken. Very cool, interesting stuff there to check out and explore. So again, guys, that's the main topic of tonight's episode is cannabis and mushrooms and mycelium is the solution to so many of our problems. I really do believe that. And get out there, experience now. Get out there and feel the immediate presence of the now, of the immediate experience. And keep the planet and each other in your heart while you do it, guys. So thanks so much for watching. Appreciate y'all. Love you. Make sure we're living that green revolution. And yeah, guys, you have yourselves a wonderful Wednesday night. And we'll see you soon for the next item restoration or park cleanup. And eventually here too, I think I'm gonna get a grow episode in here. We'll grow some plants together, and I'll document my process for that too. Just a lot of editing. There's just so much editing and stuff like that goes into this stuff. That's why I like these live streams, because they're kind of simple. I can just come on, talk with you guys, hang out, get stuff that's on my mind for the week off my chest, and holla at the community, y'all. All right, guys, have a great night.